Good evening, and welcome back to another quiet journey through boring history for sleep. Tonight, let us drift gently into the world of the ancient Romans. Not into their battles or politics, but into the stillness of their daily lives. Specifically, we will step into the walls of a Roman villa. Imagine yourself walking through heavy wooden doors, where life was both ordinary and elegant. This is not the story of emperors or generals, but of families, of routines, and the small details that shaped existence nearly 2,000 years ago. Before we begin, let me ask you softly, how are you feeling right now? From which country are you listening tonight? And what time is it where you are? It feels comforting to imagine people in many places, all connected by this single moment of stillness. If you enjoy these calm stories of the past, I invite you to gently like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell so you won't miss the next quiet tale. Now, let us slowly step across the threshold of the villa. The air feels cooler inside, the stone floor firm beneath your feet, and the faint echo of each step reminds you that this house was built not only for shelter, but for permanence. A Roman villa was more than a home. It was a place of family, of work, and of memory. To live in one was to belong to a rhythm of life that mixed elegance with practicality. The villa itself stood with quiet strength, often in the countryside, where fields and gardens surrounded its walls. Built with careful planning, its roofs were tiled, its walls painted, and its layout designed to welcome both sunlight and shade. Each corner had purpose, each hallway carried footsteps toward work, conversation, or rest. The villa was a reflection of stability, a small world contained within stone and wood. At the heart of many villas lay the atrium, an open courtyard that invited the sky inside. There was often a shallow pool at its center, designed to collect the rain. Imagine the soft sound of water dripping into the basin, a rhythm that never rushed. Light poured in from above, shifting slowly with the hours, painting patterns across the walls. The atrium was not grand in the way of palaces, but it was calm, designed to let air and light flow through the home. Beyond the atrium, rooms unfolded in a careful pattern. Some were small and private, spaces to withdraw at the end of a day. Others were larger, meant for gathering, conversation, and rest. The villa balanced intimacy with openness, so that life could flow naturally from one room to another. Walking through its halls, one might notice the gentle coolness of the stone, or the painted walls that carried hints of color, a quiet beauty meant to last. Bedrooms, though not large, offered comfort in their simplicity. A bed, a chest for belongings, perhaps a small lamp. These spaces were not designed for grandeur, but for stillness. In these quiet corners, the household found rest. They were rooms where silence settled, where shadows grew long in the evening, and where the rhythm of daily life paused until morning returned. Life in the villa was not only private. Shared spaces mattered too. The dining area, for instance, was a place of gathering. Reclining on couches arranged around a low table, the family shared meals, spoke softly, and passed the hours together. While the variety of food depended on wealth and circumstance, the essence was the same. The meal was not just about eating, but about being together, about strengthening the bonds of the household. Behind the scenes, kitchens and work areas formed the practical heart of the villa. These were warm and sometimes smoky rooms, where clay ovens glowed and stone counters were put to use. Meals were prepared with care, often from the gardens and fields just beyond the walls. Here, the tools of daily life, jars, pots, grinding stones, were simple yet essential. And though the food itself could provide nourishment, it was always the will of the Almighty that gave it true benefit. Step outside, and the villa often opened into a garden. Some were grand, others modest, but nearly all were places of balance. Flowers for beauty, herbs for healing, vegetables for sustenance. Paths wound gently between greenery, fountains murmured softly, and shade offered relief on warm days. In these gardens, the household found not only food and fragrance, but also peace, a reminder that nature's cycles surrounded and supported them in every season. Work was always part of life in the villa. While the house itself offered comfort, it also stood at the center of activity. Fields stretched beyond the walls, producing grain, olives, and grapes. These were not only symbols of abundance, but part of the daily rhythm of survival. A villa was never idle. Its life depended on steady work, on care for the land, and on the balance between effort and rest. For the head of the household, overseeing these tasks was as important as enjoying the comforts of home. The villa required constant attention, crops to be tended, supplies to be stored, and people to be guided in their work. In this way, the villa was more than a home. It was an entire system, where daily labor flowed quietly alongside moments of leisure. Yet even in work, there was beauty. Olives pressed into oil, grapes turned into drink, and grains ground into flour. These transformations carried the blessing of usefulness, for no object, no plant, held power on its own. Rather, it was the Almighty who allowed such things to bring nourishment. To live in the villa was to live with gratitude for these small gifts, received through creation, sustained by unseen mercy. Inside the villa, decorations brought quiet warmth. Walls often carried paintings in soft colors, scenes of nature, patterns, or simple designs that gave personality to the space. Floors, too, might hold mosaics, arranged stone by stone into patterns that lasted through time. These details were not loud or overwhelming, but gentle, meant to surround the household with a sense of calm permanence. Small statues or carved objects sometimes rested in corners or niches. They were not the focus of life, but rather a form of decoration, like placing art in a modern home. What mattered most was the feeling of stability they gave, a sense that the villa was whole, complete, and cared for. In every detail, the villa reflected the human desire to create beauty within ordinary life. As the sun lowered, the villa changed its mood. Shadows stretched across the courtyards, and lamps began to glow softly in the halls. The walls, once bright with daylight, grew gentle in the evening quiet. In these hours, conversation slowed, footsteps softened, and the household prepared for rest. The villa seemed to exhale, as if the stones themselves settled into silence. The night brought its own rhythm. Crickets in the garden, the distant rustle of leaves, the faint sound of water in the courtyard pool. These were the sounds that carried the household into sleep. Each room, from the simplest to the most adorned, became a cocoon of rest, holding its sleepers until dawn. To live in a Roman villa was not to live in constant grandeur, but in balance. There was labor and leisure, simplicity and detail, silence and sound. It was a life shaped by patterns, by routines, by the desire for both comfort and order. In many ways, it was not so different from our lives now, where we also search for stability, rest, and connection. And so, as we leave the villa tonight, imagine its doors closing softly behind us. The air inside grows still, the gardens fade into shadow, and the lamps burn quietly until morning. Life in the villa continues, yet for us, the story pauses here, like a book closed gently on the table. May this quiet glimpse into the past bring you peace. As you rest tonight, let the calm of the villa, its walls, its courtyards, and its gardens guide your thoughts into stillness. You are safe here, in this gentle story, and now it is time to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and drift slowly into sleep. As we step further into the villa, the rooms reveal themselves in quiet sequence. Each chamber seems to flow into the next, connected not only by stone and timber, but by the lives that moved gently through them. The villa was more than walls. It was a stage upon which the rhythms of family, work, and rest unfolded, day after day, season after season. The walls themselves carried a certain softness, often painted in earthy tones or decorated with patterns. These were not only for show, but to give the household a sense of comfort, of belonging. To look upon these colors was to feel surrounded by calmness, a reminder that even in the busyness of life, beauty could be found in quiet corners. The floors underfoot sometimes told their own stories. Small pieces of stone, carefully arranged into mosaics, created images or patterns meant to endure. Each step across them was a step upon history, a reminder of patience and precision. The villa was not a place of haste, but of detail, where even the ground held gentle artistry. Moving into the gathering spaces, we find rooms arranged for conversation, for rest, and for sharing. Couches lined the walls, low tables held simple objects, and the air carried the faint scent of oil from lamps. These were the rooms where life slowed, where words and silences mixed, and where the household found connection in the ordinary passing of time. The soundscape of the villa was equally important. The faint echo of footsteps in stone halls, the murmur of water from a courtyard pool, the rustle of fabric as someone passed by. All of these blended into a rhythm of life that was never hurried, but steady, dependable, and familiar. It was in these sounds that the villa spoke most clearly of its character. Light, too, played its role. Openings in the roof and walls allowed the sun to enter in measured ways, creating soft beams that shifted slowly throughout the day. Morning light painted the rooms with freshness, while evening brought golden tones that deepened into quiet shadow. In this way, time itself could be seen upon the walls of the villa. The furniture was often simple, crafted with care, but not always with extravagance. Wooden tables, sturdy chests, woven mats, these objects were part of daily rhythm. Though they offered function, their true benefit was only through the will of the Almighty, who allowed such things to provide rest and ease. In their presence, the villa felt complete, yet never excessive. In certain corners, shelves or niches held vessels of clay, glass, or bronze. Some contained oil, others grain or water carefully stored. These objects stood in silence, yet their presence was essential. They marked the villa as a place of provision, a place where life's needs were met through steady care and preparation. The villa was not only a home of stone and paint, but of air and light. Its courtyards connected indoors with outdoors, its gardens softened the structure with green, and its paths reminded each person that movement was as much a part of life as stillness. It was a dwelling designed not only for shelter, but for harmony. As we pause within these walls, the villa reveals itself not as a grand monument, but as a living, breathing space. Each corner, each echo, each detail told a story of human presence. A story not of great victories or conquests, but of ordinary life, lived quietly and meaningfully within the embrace of stone, wood, and earth. Walking deeper into the villa, the air changes with each doorway. Some rooms feel cooler, where thick stone keeps back the heat of the day. Others receive soft sheets of sunlight, that settle across painted walls and mosaic floors. The house holds both comfort and contrast, answering the rhythm of morning and afternoon with shade and brightness. Never in a hurry, always composed. In the storage rooms, order offers a quiet kind of reassurance. Amphorae stand shoulder to shoulder, jars of grain and oil labeled and set in rows. Their presence means stability rather than display. What they contain is useful only by the permission of the Almighty, who grants benefit through simple means. To see these shelves is to feel tomorrow's meals and next week's needs already cared for. Some villas kept a small room for reading or writing, a place for scrolls, wax, tablets, and thought. Here the noise of the household falls away. Light enters from a high window, and a lamp is ready for dusk. One can sit, compose a list, note the weather, or copy a favorite line. The room is humble, but it gives the villa a mind as well as a body. The link to the outdoors remains constant. Courtyards open to the sky, and gardens round the edges of stone with green. Paths wind past herbs and fruit trees. A fountain keeps its gentle measure, and shade gathers under trellised vines. The garden is not decoration alone. It belongs to daily life, offering scent, shelter, and rest to all who pass through. As evening draws near, the house changes its voice. Lamps wake along the walls, shadows lengthen in corridors, and conversations soften. The day folds itself neatly, and the villa answers with calm. Work settles, rooms grow slower. The same walls that brightened at noon now grow warm and quiet, ready to receive the night. In this stillness, ordinary moments become clear. A laugh from the dining room. Two sets of footsteps crossing a mosaic. The low murmur of a story told in the courtyard. These layers remain in memory even when the rooms are silent. The villa keeps them without effort, holding each trace the way stone holds the day's warmth after sunset. To live here is to live within balance. Effort has its hours, so does rest. Some moments belong to privacy, others to company. The house does not demand attention, it supports it. In rooms for gathering and rooms for quiet, the villa witnesses life without hurry, steady as the turning of the seasons. For now, in our imagination, we pause at the threshold. The doors ease toward one another, the air grows cooler, and the garden slips into gentle shadow. Crickets begin their patient chorus. We will return to these rooms, but this brief pause lets the mind settle before the next part of the journey. If this calm wandering feels restful, stay with us as the story continues. Let the light of the lamps and the hush of the halls lead you onward, unbroken and unhurried, into the next chapter of the villa's life. Before we move on, a gentle note. If you'd like more quiet histories, you may subscribe and turn on the bell so new chapters meet you softly. In an upcoming upload, we'll explore a curious question from Roman daily life. Did ancient Romans really have indoor plumbing? Stepping once more into the heart of the Roman villa, the rhythm of daily life becomes clearer. These homes were not places of constant luxury, but of quiet patterns that repeated themselves across generations. A villa was both practical and graceful, a world contained within its walls. Its courtyards caught the rain, its gardens softened the air, and its rooms sheltered families through both ordinary days and times of change. In this balance between elegance and usefulness, the villa became a symbol of stability, a place where life unfolded without haste. The atrium, always central, stood as a gathering point. Water collected in its shallow pool reflected the sky above, while beams of light shifted across painted walls. Children might have played there, voices rising and fading, while elders sat nearby, speaking softly or resting in the shade. The atrium was not only the architectural heart of the villa, but the emotional one as well. It was the point where the outdoors and indoors met, binding the home together. Bedrooms, though modest, carried their own sense of peace. Each chamber was carefully arranged, often with little more than a bed, a lamp, and a storage chest. Their painted walls held simple patterns, faded with time but still carrying warmth. In the evening, the air grew quiet, and shadows lengthened across the floor. Families withdrew to these small spaces not for grandeur, but for privacy. Within their walls, the noise of the day fell away, replaced by silence that gently prepared the household for rest. The dining room offered a different atmosphere. Here, couches were placed around a low table, designed not for speed, but for lingering. The act of eating was slow, accompanied by conversation and laughter. The foods themselves varied depending on wealth and season, but the spirit of gathering remained the same. Shared meals allowed the villa to breathe, bringing people together in ways that transcended hunger. It was in this room that the bonds of family and friendship were most deeply felt, renewed each evening behind the scenes. The kitchen worked quietly to support these moments. It was a place of fire, smoke, and tools that seemed ordinary yet essential. Large jars stood in rows, pots simmered on clay ovens, and grinding stones were used with steady hands. Though the villa might appear serene from the outside, its kitchens revealed constant energy. Food was drawn from gardens, fields, and storage, transformed daily into nourishment. In this balance of labor and stillness, the villa's heart remained strong. The storerooms, cool and dark, added to the household's security. Large amphorae lined the walls, filled with grain, oil, or dried fruits. These spaces offered more than supplies. They offered reassurance. To know that the villa was well stocked meant safety against uncertain seasons. These rooms, though simple, carried a weight of comfort. They spoke of preparation, of foresight, and of the quiet desire to keep the household steady through whatever days might come. Gardens, too, were part of this steady rhythm. They were not only spaces of beauty, but of usefulness. Herbs grew in clusters, carrying fragrance through the air, while vegetables and fruit trees gave sustenance to the household. Birds nested in branches, water trickled through small fountains, and paths led through shaded corners. To walk here was to step into calm, where the order of the villa met the openness of nature. The garden softened the strength of stone with the gentleness of green. The decorations of the villa gave it character. Walls bore frescoes in muted tones, floors sparkled with mosaics, and even ceilings sometimes carried painted designs. These were not displays of vanity, but of craftsmanship, reminders that beauty could dwell within daily life. Each detail had been chosen with care, made to endure across years. To pass through such spaces was to sense a connection not only to the household, but to the hands of those who had built and painted them long ago. Small objects contributed to this atmosphere. Clay lamps cast pools of light at night, bronze vessels gleamed faintly, and woven textiles softened the harder surfaces of stone. Each piece, though humble, carried meaning. Together, they created a space that was not empty but alive with detail. These items did not hold power of their own. Rather, their benefit came only by the will of the Almighty, who allowed such objects to bring comfort to the home. In their presence, the villa felt whole, and always, the villa carried a sense of permanence. Its stone walls had been raised with care, its tiled roofs designed to endure, and its layout built to guide generations through life's cycles. To live within such a home was to feel surrounded by stability, by something larger than a single moment. The villa's strength lay not in grandeur alone, but in the steady, patient way it carried families through time, offering rest, shelter, and the quiet beauty of continuity. As evening deepened in the villa, the spaces took on a softer tone. Shadows stretched along the painted walls, and the air grew cooler. The sound of daily activity slowly faded, leaving only the quiet murmur of voices and the gentle creak of wooden doors. Life inside the villa slowed, not abruptly, but like a river finding calmer waters. The household moved naturally from labor to rest, from light to shadow, from the fullness of the day to the stillness of night. The courtyards reflected this change. In daylight, they had echoed with footsteps and the trickle of water into basins. By evening, they held silence, broken only by the occasional drop of rain or the faint whisper of leaves stirred by a breeze. The open sky above darkened gradually, and lanterns or lamps offered a dim glow that transformed the familiar space into something more hushed, more reflective. The bedrooms, small and simple, became sanctuaries of rest. A lamp might flicker softly in the corner, casting shadows that shifted gently across the walls. Beds were modest, but carried the comfort of familiarity, woven textiles adding warmth. Within these rooms, the household found retreat, away from the tasks of the day. Sleep came not quickly, but gradually, like the slow dimming of a flame, until the home itself seemed wrapped in silence. Kitchens, though quieter at night, still held the warmth of the day's work. The faint smell of herbs, bread, or smoke lingered in the air. Pots cooled on the counters, and embers glowed softly in the ovens before fading into darkness. Even in stillness, these spaces carried the memory of activity, a reminder of the effort that sustained the household. By morning, they would once again awaken to prepare for the needs of another day. The storerooms held their own silence, undisturbed by the passing of hours. Amphorae lined in rows seemed almost timeless, waiting in the shadows. Grain, oil, and other provisions stood quietly, their presence a symbol of steadiness. These rooms reminded the household that the villa was not just for the moment, but prepared for days ahead. In this quiet, the weight of foresight could be felt, like a silent guardian over the home. Gardens, too, shifted in tone as night approached. Flowers closed their petals, trees whispered softly in the breeze, and the fragrance of herbs grew stronger in the cool air. Moonlight touched leaves with silver, while pathways faded into shadow. The garden became less a place of work and more a place of quiet reflection. Its beauty remained, but in a calmer, gentler way, suited for rest rather than labor. The decorations inside the villa, so full of life in daylight, took on new shapes in dim light. Frescoes faded into shadow, mosaics seemed softer, and statues or small objects cast long silhouettes across the walls. What had been vivid in sunlight became dreamlike at night. The home itself seemed to prepare for sleep, echoing the rhythm of those who lived within it. In this quiet rhythm, the villa revealed its true strength, not in grandeur or constant display, but in steadiness. It was a place that could hold both activity and silence, both day and night, both labor and rest. The balance was delicate, but it endured, carrying each household through the flow of time without breaking. The villa was not a monument, but a living home. To imagine life here is to see more than walls or painted floors. It is to sense the voices that once filled these spaces, the footsteps across stone, the hands that tended gardens and lit lamps each evening. Though centuries have passed, these traces linger softly, woven into the villa's design. The building itself became a memory, holding echoes of life long after the people were gone. And so, the Roman villa stands in history not as a grand palace, but as a home where life unfolded quietly. Within its walls, families rested, worked, and grew. Its courtyards and gardens connected them to nature, while its halls carried them gently from day into night. To live here was to live with rhythm, patience, and calm. A life of balance, steady and unhurried, now passed on as a quiet story for us to remember. Stepping further into the Roman villa, our attention turns to the way its spaces supported daily routines. These homes were carefully arranged so that life could move smoothly from one task to another. Nothing was accidental. Each room had a role, and each courtyard or hallway carried meaning. Walking through these halls, one would sense the thoughtfulness behind their design. The villa was built not only to endure, but to guide the household gently through the cycles of work, rest, and gathering. The morning often began with quiet movement in the courtyards. Doors opened, the air felt cool, and footsteps echoed softly against stone. Light filtered down from the sky into the atrium, reflecting on the water that collected in its pool. This simple detail brought freshness into the day. To stand there in the early hours was to be reminded that life, however ordinary, always began again, with steady rhythms that tied one day to the next. As the household stirred, rooms slowly filled with activity. Servants prepared spaces, children moved through the halls, and elders might settle in shaded corners. Each person found their place within the larger pattern. The villa was not one voice, but many, woven together like threads into fabric. This balance gave the home its life, not through noise or grand gestures, but through steady, familiar routines. The kitchen was among the first to awaken. Fires were lit, grinding stones turned, and jars were opened to prepare food. The air filled with scents of bread and herbs drifting into the nearby rooms. These spaces, though small and smoky, carried great importance. They were the quiet workshops of nourishment, where simple ingredients were transformed into meals that sustained the household. Without them, the rhythm of the villa could not continue. Elsewhere, storerooms stood ready. Their cool air preserved grains, oil, and fruit from earlier harvests. Rows of amphorae stood like silent guardians, offering assurance that the home would not be caught unprepared. These rooms represented foresight and stability. To know they were full was to feel secure, sheltered against the unpredictability of the seasons. They were less visible than gardens or courtyards, but no less important to the villa's survival. The gardens themselves added both beauty and function. Morning light touched leaves and flowers, dew clung to the grass, and the fragrance of herbs drifted with the breeze. Pathways curved gently between trees and fountains. These spaces were not grand estates, but living, breathing parts of the villa. They provided shade in heat, food for the table, and quiet corners for reflection. In their simplicity, the gardens softened the hard lines of stone, making the villa feel whole. Work extended beyond the walls. Fields surrounding the villa produced crops, while orchards yielded fruit. These areas required steady labor, for the household depended on them as much as on its storerooms and kitchens. Men and women tended the land, guiding it patiently through the seasons. Each cycle of planting and harvest wove the villa into the broader rhythm of nature, a reminder that human effort was always bound to the earth. Inside the villa, the decorations provided continuity. Frescoes lined walls, mosaics covered floors, and simple carvings rested in corners. These works did not shout but whispered, giving the household a sense of place. They reminded the family that their home was not only useful, but meaningful. To sit among these details was to live in spaces that carried quiet artistry, made to last beyond one lifetime. The villa was alive with movement, yet it never felt hurried. Steps across the mosaic floors, voices rising and fading, doors opening to the gardens, all these created a gentle soundtrack of daily life. It was not a palace of grandeur or endless feasting. Instead, it was a living space where ordinary moments gathered into something enduring. Its rhythm was steady, patient, and calm, much like the turning of the seasons themselves. To walk through such a home today, even in ruins, is to sense these patterns. Though the voices are gone, and the lamps no longer glow, the layout still tells its story. The courtyards still open to the sky, the gardens still breathe in the wind, and the walls still hold faint traces of color. Time has passed, yet the villa remains a quiet witness to the lives once lived within its embrace. The heart of the villa was its people. Every sound, every movement, every moment of rest came from the lives that filled its rooms. Without them, the villa would have been only stone and timber. With them, it became a living rhythm. Families grew here, work was done here, and memories layered themselves like paint upon the walls. The villa was not only architecture, but human presence made visible in space. In the dining areas, meals marked the passage of time. Morning brought bread and fruit, midday carried more substance, and evening slowed into longer gatherings. The low tables and reclining couches encouraged conversation, laughter, and stillness after work. Eating together was less about the food itself and more about connection. These rooms were designed to draw people close, to let hours pass gently while voices mingled in calm harmony. Children experienced the villa differently. To them, the courtyards were playgrounds, the gardens places of discovery, and the rooms endless spaces to explore. Their footsteps rang through the halls, their voices echoed against stone, and their laughter brightened even the quietest corners. In this way, the villa carried the energy of youth, balanced against the wisdom of its elders. Both threads intertwined to keep the household alive. The elders, meanwhile, often held the slowest pace. They chose shaded corners, soft seats, or quiet gardens where they could rest and reflect. Their presence reminded the household of continuity, of life stretching beyond a single generation. In their calm, the villa found balance, for it was not only a place of movement, but also of stillness. Their stories lingered, passing knowledge to the younger ones, shaping the villa with memory. Evening descended with gentleness. As lamps were lit, the walls glowed in soft golden light. Courtyards grew hushed, gardens turned silver under the moon, and footsteps softened. Each room settled into its own rhythm of rest. The villa transformed from a place of activity into a cocoon of quiet. It did not sleep as people did, but it seemed to breathe more slowly, as if joining the household in its calm. The mosaics that sparkled by day became muted patterns in the dim light. Frescoes blurred into shadow, their colors barely visible. Only the faint outlines remained, like memories half-remembered. Objects placed on shelves or in corners caught the glow of lamps, casting long silhouettes against the walls. Night gave the villa a dreamlike quality, reminding its people that rest was as essential as labor. The sounds of the night belonged to nature. Crickets sang from the garden, leaves rustled in the breeze, and water dripped steadily in the courtyard pool. These soft sounds wove into the silence, lulling the household into stillness. The villa became quiet, not through emptiness, but through harmony, as if every corner agreed to pause until dawn. Within this rhythm, the villa endured. It was never rushed, never chaotic, but steady, like the passing of stars across the night sky. Its purpose was not grandeur, but continuity, to shelter life, to carry families through time, to stand quietly as generations came and went. In this patience, the villa revealed its deepest strength. When morning returned, so too would activity. Fires would be lit again, voices would rise, and footsteps would echo in the halls. But for now, the villa rested, wrapped in calm. Its stillness was not emptiness, but preparation, the pause between cycles. Even in silence, it remained alive, holding its household in gentle care. And so, the Roman villa stands for us today not as a monument of conquest, but as a reminder of daily life. A life of balance, of rhythm, of beauty found in small details. It invites us to imagine not only the walls and gardens, but the people who once lived within them. In this way, the villa continues its story, not loud, not hurried, but steady, patient, and calm. The Roman villa was not only a shelter of stone and tile, but also a place where time itself seemed to take shape. Each day unfolded in patterns, and those patterns gave life its steady rhythm. To rise with the sun, to gather in the courtyard, to tend the gardens, to share meals, these were not extraordinary acts, but they gave the household continuity. The villa became a vessel for time, carrying the family from one season to the next, anchoring them in the flow of life. Within the atrium, the open pool reflected more than rainwater. It mirrored the passing hours, the light of dawn, the shadows of noon, the soft glow of evening. Standing here, one could sense how the villa itself kept time. No clocks were needed. The sun, the shadows, the sounds of activity all marked the rhythm. In this way, the atrium was not only an architectural feature, but a living calendar of the household. Daily routines were simple, yet meaningful. The morning might begin with cleaning, preparing food, or opening rooms to the air. Later hours could be spent working in gardens or managing supplies. Afternoons carried slower moments, shaded by courtyards or softened by the presence of cool walls. Each activity, no matter how ordinary, gave structure to the day. And in that structure, the household found peace. The villa's courtyards carried echoes of footsteps, laughter, and work. Voices bounced gently against stone, mingling with the sound of flowing water. These were the everyday songs of the villa, not composed, not planned, but natural, the background of ordinary life. To walk through these spaces was to feel surrounded by a gentle hum of activity, never rushed, never loud, always balanced. In the kitchens, tasks unfolded quietly but steadily. Grinding stones turned with a rhythmic sound, pots simmered on clay ovens, and hands prepared ingredients drawn from storage or garden. These actions, though repetitive, carried purpose. The villa depended on them each day, for through these simple labors came nourishment. The household did not thrive through grandeur alone, but through these small, patient acts repeated endlessly. Gardens reflected the same balance. They were cultivated with care, offering herbs, fruits, and vegetables to the household. Yet they were also places of stillness, where one could pause among shaded paths or listen to the water of a fountain. The garden balanced usefulness with beauty, just as the villa itself did. In every leaf and branch, in every path, the harmony of life and rest was visible. The storerooms reminded the household of foresight. Jars of grain, amphorae of oil, and preserved fruits stood waiting in cool shadows. Their presence was quiet, yet powerful. To know that supplies were secured was to feel reassurance. These rooms did not need to speak loudly. They spoke through stability, through the steady preparation that allowed the household to endure, children brought their own rhythm to the villa. Their voices rang brightly across courtyards, their footsteps darted along halls, and their laughter filled the air. They discovered small details that adults might overlook: the cool touch of stone, the sound of birds in the garden, the reflection of light in the atrium pool. For them, the villa was not only a structure, but a world of play and discovery, woven into the rhythm of daily life. Elders, in contrast, carried the slowest pace. They sat in shaded corners, observed the activity around them, and shared stories that connected the present to the past. Their calm presence balanced the energy of youth, reminding the villa that time stretched beyond a single day. Through their wisdom, the home carried memory, not just activity. In their stillness, the villa found depth. Together, these layers, the laughter of children, the quiet of elders, the work of kitchens, the beauty of gardens, formed the soul of the villa. It was not only walls and roofs, but a living world shaped by all who dwelled within. Each voice, each step, each task added to the whole. The villa's true grandeur lay not in size or wealth, but in the steady weaving of ordinary life into something lasting. Evening in the villa arrived not suddenly, but slowly, as though the home itself sighed with relief. Shadows lengthened, lamps were lit, and the sounds of work softened into silence. Each room took on a different mood, more hushed, more reflective. The villa did not stop living at night. It simply shifted into a quieter rhythm, preparing both the household and itself for rest. The atrium reflected this change. Its pool, so bright under the sun, now mirrored lamps flickering along the walls. The air grew cooler, and the open roof revealed the darkening sky. Stars appeared one by one, faint at first, then steady. The courtyard became less a place of activity and more a place of stillness, a reminder of the vastness beyond the villa walls. In bedrooms, lamps flickered softly, shadows stretched across painted walls, and the stillness of night entered like a quiet guest. Beds, though modest, carried the comfort of routine, of familiarity. Here the household withdrew, seeking rest after the day's work. The rooms themselves seemed to exhale, as though sharing in the calm. Night wrapped them gently, carrying the household into sleep. Kitchens held a softer silence at night. The heat of ovens faded, pots cooled on counters, and the smell of food lingered faintly in the air. Though the fires were out, the memory of their warmth remained. These rooms, so full of energy by day, became still, waiting for morning to stir them back into life. Their quiet was not emptiness, but rest. The gardens glowed faintly under the moon. Paths disappeared into shadow, leaves whispered in the breeze, and water shimmered softly in the light. Flowers closed, while herbs released stronger fragrance in the cool air. The garden, alive with activity in the day, now became a place of reflection, of silence. It mirrored the villa itself, shifting from labor to rest. Decorations, so vivid in daylight, became softer, dreamlike. Frescoes blurred in dim light, mosaics lost their sharpness, and small statues cast long shadows. The villa seemed to transform, becoming less physical and more like memory. Night gave the home a gentleness, as though it too sought rest beside its inhabitants. The sounds of the night grew distinct. Crickets sang, leaves rustled, water dripped steadily into the atrium pool. These were not intrusions, but companions to the silence. They wove themselves into the villa's calm, creating a lullaby of nature and stone. The household rested within this harmony, wrapped in the sounds of stillness, In these hours, the villa revealed its essence. Not grandeur or noise, but steadiness. It was a place that carried people gently through time, sheltering their lives with patience. Night after night, year after year, the villa endured. Its walls bore witness not to battles or politics, but to sleep, to dreams, to the simple act of resting. When dawn approached, the cycle would begin again. Lamps would fade, fires would be lit, voices would rise, and the home would once more be filled with activity. But for now, the villa rested alongside its people, cradling them in silence until the first light of day returned. And so, the Roman villa teaches us not only about architecture, but about rhythm. The balance between work and rest, sound and silence, day and night. It was this balance that made life possible within its walls. And it is this balance that still lingers in its ruins, a whisper of calm across centuries. Life in a Roman villa was not only shaped by the architecture itself, but by the rhythm of daily tasks. The home stood as both shelter and workshop, a place where practical needs were met with quiet steadiness. Each day brought small duties: cleaning, tending fires, preparing food, maintaining tools. These tasks were not glamorous, yet they gave life its order. In the villa, nothing was wasted. Every effort, every moment of labor, contributed to the balance of the household. The courtyards carried these routines gently. In the morning, sweeping removed the dust of yesterday, water was drawn, and fresh air was allowed to enter through open spaces. These courtyards were not only decorative, but functional. They kept the villa cool, provided light to interior rooms, and created a space where tasks could unfold beneath the open sky. To live in a villa was to live between indoors and outdoors, never fully separated from nature. The kitchen embodied the heart of this daily rhythm. Here, hands worked steadily with tools that had little changed for generations. Grinding stones prepared flour, ovens baked bread, and pots simmered with herbs and vegetables. The smells of food filled the villa, drifting into halls and courtyards. This labor was repeated day after day, simple and constant, yet essential. In these actions, the villa revealed its reliance on patience, for every meal required time and care. The storerooms added another layer of stability. Cool and quiet, they safeguarded the provisions that the household depended on. Amphorae lined the walls, their shapes steady in the dim light. Grain, oil, and dried fruit lay preserved against hunger. These rooms did not need grandeur. Their value lay in their silence. They were reminders that foresight sustained the villa as much as present effort. Without them, daily rhythms could falter. Gardens complemented this system. They were places of cultivation as much as beauty. Herbs grew close at hand, ready to flavor food or soothe illness. Fruit trees bent with their gifts, vegetables sprouted from carefully tended soil, and fountains whispered quietly through shaded paths. The garden tied the villa to the land, making visible the cycle of growth and harvest. Each leaf and branch played a role in the steady flow of daily life. The villa's layout reflected a careful balance of movement. Pathways guided footsteps smoothly, allowing one task to lead into another. A corridor led to storage, a courtyard to the kitchen, a room to the garden. This design was not accidental. It revealed an understanding of how life unfolded, how people moved, how daily work could be carried with less effort. The villa itself became a partner in the rhythm of labor. In this way, the villa felt alive. The sounds of work, grinding stone, chopping wood, water pouring into jars, blended with the softer sounds of nature. Birds called from gardens, breezes moved through the open spaces, footsteps echoed across stone floors. The villa was never silent, but it was never harsh. Its sounds were steady, predictable, and calm, like the heartbeat of daily life. Children wove themselves into this rhythm too. Their laughter echoed in courtyards, their steps darted through halls, and their voices rose above the steady labor. To them, the villa was both home and playground, a place of endless discovery. They found joy in details overlooked by adults, the patterns of mosaics, the coolness of water, the warmth of a sunlit wall. Their presence filled the villa with brightness, balancing the seriousness of daily tasks. The elders carried their own presence. They did not move quickly, nor did they join in every labor, but their stillness shaped the villa as much as any activity. From shaded seats, they observed, remembered, and told stories that stretched life beyond the present. Their calmness added depth to the rhythm of the household. The villa's strength came not only from movement, but also from stillness. Together, these layers formed the pattern of life. The villa was not simply a structure of stone and timber. It was a living system where every room, every sound, every person had a place. It thrived not on spectacle, but on balance. To imagine it today is to feel the steady hum of ordinary life, unfolding patiently within walls designed to last through generations. As the day lengthened, the villa adapted. Sunlight shifted through open roofs, casting new patterns across the floors. Courtyards grew warmer, gardens brighter, kitchens busier. Time itself seemed visible within the villa's walls, traced in shadow and sound. This constant movement reminded the household that life was never static. The villa carried them forward, hour by hour, always steady, always calm. Meals marked the progression of time. Midday brought a pause, where food was shared more quietly than in the evening. Bread, fruit, and simple dishes gave energy to continue work. The dining room, though modest, was filled with presence. Reclining couches encouraged slower moments, letting conversation flow even in the middle of the day. These pauses carried meaning, for they turned necessity into connection. Outside, fields stretched around the villa, and they too played their part in the daily rhythm. Crops required care, animals needed tending, and the land itself demanded patience. Labor here connected the villa to the wider world. What was grown and gathered beyond its walls sustained the kitchens and storerooms within. The villa was not an isolated place, but one deeply tied to the land. In the afternoon, activity softened. Shadows grew long in courtyards, and cooler air drifted through the halls. Tasks slowed, voices quieted, and the villa shifted into a more restful rhythm. Children's laughter still echoed, elders still rested in shaded corners, but the overall pace grew gentler. The home itself seemed to breathe more slowly, preparing for the calm of evening. Decorations reflected this shift as well. Colors on the walls looked different in fading light. Mosaics glowed faintly beneath the dim sky, and statues cast elongated shadows across the floors. What had been bright and clear in morning now became subtle and soft. The villa reminded its inhabitants that beauty could be seen differently with every hour. Evening arrived like a gentle curtain. Lamps flickered to life, filling rooms with golden glow. Courtyards grew hushed, gardens whispered in shadow, and the household gathered once more. Meals became slower, conversations lingered longer, and the villa settled into the calm of night. Its rhythm never stopped, but it shifted, always adapting, always patient. The night sounds carried their own presence. Crickets sang, leaves stirred in the breeze, water dripped into pools. These sounds blended with the silence of rooms where lamps burned softly. The villa did not sleep as people did. yet it seemed to share in their rest. Its walls, its gardens, its courtyards all folded gently into stillness. This balance of labor and rest, of sound and silence, defined life within the villa. It was not grandeur that sustained the household, but patience. The steady repetition of daily tasks, the thoughtful design of rooms, the careful storing of food, these gave the villa its strength. It was built not for a moment, but for continuity. To walk through the ruins of such a villa today is to feel this rhythm even now. Though voices are gone and fires long extinguished, the layout still speaks. Courtyards open to the sky, gardens grow wild but familiar, storerooms echo with silence. The villa endures in shape, carrying memory across centuries. In the end, the Roman villa teaches us about balance. It reminds us that life's beauty often lies not in noise or spectacle, but in rhythm, the gentle weaving of labor and rest, of morning and night, of people and place. To imagine its halls is to step into a calm story, one that continues quietly even in ruins, whispering of time's steady flow. The Roman villa was more than walls and roofs. It was a stage for the unfolding of daily life. Within its courtyards and halls, the seasons left their gentle marks. Summer brought warmth that filled the open spaces, while winter carried a chill that made the stone floors feel colder beneath bare feet. The villa was built to adapt, offering shade during heat and shelter during storms. Its design was not only functional but mindful, a reflection of how Romans lived closely with the rhythm of nature. Gardens carried this seasonal rhythm most clearly. In spring, blossoms opened with color, herbs grew fresh, and fruit trees promised new harvests. Summer filled the air with fragrance, while autumn delivered ripened abundance. Even in winter, the garden held a quiet stillness, resting as the household waited for new growth. Each season brought its own beauty, its own pace, woven naturally into the villa's life. The atrium, open to the sky, also revealed these cycles. Rain fell directly into its pool, collecting in ripples that mirrored the clouds. In summer, sunlight poured down, warming the space and painting golden reflections across painted walls. By night, stars could be seen from within the villa itself, reminding the household of the vastness beyond their home. The atrium was both practical and poetic, a constant connection between daily life and the world above. Kitchens too reflected the seasons. In summer, they might be filled with fresh vegetables, herbs, and fruits. In autumn, jars of preserved food lined storerooms, while the kitchens smelled of drying herbs and baking bread. In winter, fires glowed longer, and meals became heavier, offering warmth against the chill. The kitchen was not only a place of labor but of adaptation, always adjusting to what the land and season provided. The storerooms echoed this careful balance. Amphorae filled with oil, jars packed with grain, and dried fruits hanging in baskets told stories of preparation. These supplies were not merely storage, but security. They represented foresight, ensuring the household could endure through leaner months. The silence of these rooms spoke of stability, a quiet reassurance that life could continue unbroken no matter the season. Even the decorations shifted with light and weather. Frescoes glowed brightly when struck by summer sun, their reds and yellows vivid against white walls. In winter, their tones appeared muted, softer in the dim glow of lamps. Mosaics on floors caught reflections of water during rain, or glittered when touched by evening light. These details meant the villa was never static. It changed constantly, reflecting both the natural world and the lives of those inside. The garden paths carried memories of countless footsteps. Children played along them in summer, chasing one another among trees and flowers. In autumn, footsteps slowed as fruit was gathered, baskets filled, and branches left bare. Winter brought quietness, with fewer voices, only the rustle of leaves. By spring, the paths once again echoed with laughter and activity. Through each season, the villa's garden told its story with gentle clarity. For elders, the changing seasons brought reflection. They watched from shaded corners as blossoms appeared, as harvests were gathered, as winter winds passed. To them, the villa's cycles mirrored life itself: youth, growth, maturity, rest. Their calm presence reminded the household that time, like the seasons, carried both beauty and inevitability. Within the villa, this wisdom softened the passing of years, turning them into a steady rhythm rather than a hurried march. Children, however, felt the villa differently. They saw each season as adventure, chasing fireflies in warm nights, splashing in rain-filled pools, gathering fallen leaves in autumn. Their joy gave the villa life, filling even the quietest corners with energy. They discovered details unnoticed by adults: patterns in mosaics, insects in gardens, reflections of stars in the atrium pool. Their presence wove youth into the villa's enduring story. Together, these experiences created a home alive with change. The villa was not a frozen monument, but a place that breathed with time. It held stillness and movement, silence and sound, warmth and cold, youth and age. To live within it was to accept the rhythm of the world, to see how life unfolded, not through haste, but through balance. This was the villa's strength, its quiet harmony with the passing seasons. Morning in the villa during spring carried freshness. Doors opened, cool breezes entered, and the scent of blossoms drifted through courtyards. Work began earlier, voices rose with energy, and the villa felt alive with renewal. The household looked to the months ahead, preparing gardens, planting fields, storing supplies. In this season, hope was visible in every corner. Summer brought a slower pace. The sun grew stronger, shadows lengthened in courtyards, and gardens bloomed with fullness. Meals were often lighter, taken in shaded rooms where air flowed more freely. The villa adapted, closing some spaces to heat while opening others to breezes. Its design revealed careful thought, ensuring life continued comfortably even in the height of warmth. Autumn, however, was a season of gathering. The villa's storerooms filled gardens, offered their final gifts, and fields were harvested with care. This was a time of preparation, a reminder that abundance did not last forever. The villa's strength lay in foresight, in its ability to carry the household through the leaner months to come. Autumn was not an ending, but a bridge between energy and rest. Winter, though quieter, still carried meaning. Fires burned longer in kitchens, lamps glowed earlier in halls, and rooms seemed smaller, warmer, closer. The villa gathered the household inward, sheltering them from cold winds. Though gardens rested and fields lay bare, life inside continued. The villa held its people steady, reminding them that rest was part of the cycle, as important as growth and work. Even in stillness, the villa was never empty. The sound of footsteps across stone, the murmur of voices, the glow of firelight kept it alive. Winter revealed the home's endurance, showing that strength was not always loud but patient. Its walls, its courtyards, its storerooms all stood as quiet guardians, carrying the household until spring's renewal returned. Through all these seasons, the villa became more than shelter. It was a memory, a witness, a companion. It stood as a reminder that life did not need constant change or spectacle. Instead, meaning was found in repetition, in the calm return of cycles, in the steady weaving of work and rest. The villa endured because it was built on balance. To imagine it now is to see not only architecture, but the flow of life itself. Sunlight on walls, rain in courtyards, footsteps on garden paths, voices in shaded rooms. These details remain even in ruins, whispering of time's passage. The villa's story was never only about wealth or grandeur, but about living gently within the rhythm of the world. This harmony gave the villa its beauty, not a beauty of luxury, but of balance. Each season brought new tones, new tasks, new silences. The villa accepted them all, adjusting without resistance, continuing steadily. To live there was to live with patience, with awareness, with gratitude for each small detail. Families passed through these cycles, generation after generation. Children grew, elders aged, tasks repeated, seasons turned. The villa held them all, layer upon layer, until it too became memory. In this way, the home outlasted its people, carrying traces of their presence long after they were gone. And so, the Roman villa remains in history as a quiet teacher. It shows us that balance brings endurance, that patience creates stability, that beauty lies in steady rhythms. To reflect on its walls, its gardens, its courtyards, is to remember that life itself is strongest when lived gently within the turning seasons. The Roman villa was not only a place of rest and beauty, but also a center of work. Behind the quiet courtyards and shaded gardens, there was always labor, steady and unseen, that kept the household alive. From kitchens to storerooms, from fields to workshops, every task had its place. The villa was not idle. It breathed with effort, its stillness supported by countless small movements that carried the rhythm of life forward. In the fields beyond the villa walls, crops stretched under the sun. Wheat, barley, olives, and grapes formed the foundation of sustenance. These were not luxuries, but necessities, worked upon with patience. Seasons shaped the pace of this labor, and harvests marked the reward. Though villas were symbols of stability, they depended entirely on the earth, on cycles of growth that no household could control. Human effort was constant, but provision ultimately came by the will of the Almighty. Inside the villa, storerooms reflected this connection to the land. Each jar of oil, each amphora of grain, each bundle of dried herbs represented the labor of many hands. Stored carefully in cool rooms, these provisions gave security. They whispered of foresight, of preparation against uncertainty. The villa could seem elegant, but it was never careless. Stability depended on care, on the quiet strength of storage and patience. The kitchens transformed these supplies into nourishment. Here, simple tools performed vital tasks: grinding stones, wooden spoons, clay ovens, bronze pots. Each object had its role. The air carried scents of bread, herbs, or simmering stews, a mixture that drifted into the halls and courtyards. In the villa, food was more than sustenance. It was rhythm, repeated day after day, uniting the household through the slow, careful labor of cooking. Beyond kitchens, workshops sometimes echoed with different sounds. Tools struck wood, hands shaped clay, fibers were woven into textiles. These spaces reminded the household that self-sufficiency required skill as much as labor. Each craft contributed to the villa's balance. The work was never glamorous, but its quiet repetition gave the villa strength. To walk through such spaces was to feel the pulse of daily effort hidden behind the villa's calm surface. Even gardens carried work. Though peaceful, They required tending, pruning, watering, and care. Hands pulled weeds, trimmed branches, guided growth. Without effort, even beauty would fade. The garden's calm appearance was the result of labor, as much a part of survival as the fields beyond. Yet it was gentle work, woven with the rhythm of nature, reminding the household that beauty and usefulness could live side by side. Children often played around these labors, watching, learning, sometimes lending a hand. They saw adults grind flour, harvest fruits, or carry jars to storerooms. In this way, knowledge passed naturally between generations. The villa was not only a place of living, but a school of daily skills. To grow up within its walls was to inherit patterns that would sustain life long after childhood ended. The elders observed these efforts with calmness. They did not work as tirelessly as the younger, but their guidance carried weight. They reminded the household of patience, of planning, of the lessons of past seasons. Their words balanced the energy of labor with the wisdom of reflection. In this way, the villa's strength did not lie in effort alone, but in the blending of action and memory. The villa's design supported this system. Rooms flowed into each other in ways that made labor efficient. Courtyards brought air and light to kitchens. Storerooms were close enough for easy access. Gardens were connected to water supplies. This was not chance, but planning. Architecture was woven into the rhythm of work, showing how the villa itself was a tool for survival as much as a dwelling. In the balance of work and rest, the villa revealed its essence. It was not idle luxury, nor endless toil, but a steady blending of both. Labor gave meaning to the courtyards, storerooms, and kitchens. Rest gave renewal to bedrooms, gardens, and shaded halls. Together, they created continuity. To imagine the villa is to see this balance unfolding slowly, gently, like the steady breath of a living home. The sounds of work shaped the villa's atmosphere. The scrape of tools, the rhythm of footsteps, the low murmur of voices blended into a background of calm industry. These were not harsh noises, but steady, almost soothing. They reminded the household that life was being carried forward, that the villa's quiet strength came from ordinary tasks repeated without hurry. In kitchens, the sounds were softer but constant. Grinding stones turned, lids lifted, bread baked in glowing ovens. The clink of jars, the hiss of water meeting hot clay, the stir of spoons in pots, each small sound marked a piece of life. Together, they formed a quiet song of nourishment, one that echoed through the villa's halls. Work in the gardens carried its own melody. The snip of shears, the rustle of branches, the trickle of fountains combined with birdsong and wind. This was labor that did not disturb silence, but deepened it. To walk in these gardens during work was to hear harmony, people and nature woven together in soft effort. Beyond the walls, the fields told another story. The calls of workers, the scrape of tools against soil, the swish of grain harvested, these were the villa's connection to the larger land. Without them, the storerooms would fall empty, the kitchens quiet, the household uncertain. Their effort tied the villa to the earth, a reminder that stability came not from stone walls alone, but from the land's patience. Even the storerooms spoke with sound, though softly. The shifting of jars, the settling of grain, the hollow echo of footsteps in cool rooms. These quiet noises told of provision, of supplies stored against need. They reminded the household that silence itself could carry meaning, that calm preparation was as valuable as noisy work. Children absorbed these rhythms. They played among the echoes, turned work into games, and carried small tasks with laughter. Their presence gave lightness to labor, ensuring it was never only duty. In their joy, the villa breathed more fully, blending effort with brightness. The home itself seemed more alive, with their voices threading through the sound of work. Elders balanced this with silence. Their stillness was not absence, but presence of another kind. They observed, advised, and reminded the household of the importance of patience. Their quiet words carried weight, shaping how labor unfolded, how preparation was made. The villa depended on both the energy of the young and the wisdom of the old to maintain its rhythm. As evening came, the sounds softened. Work slowed, tools were put away, and footsteps grew fewer. Kitchens faded into quiet, gardens into shadow, storerooms into stillness. The villa shifted again from effort to rest. Its heartbeat slowed, its voice grew softer as the household settled into calm. In this transition, the villa revealed its strength once more. It could carry noise and silence, effort and stillness, equally. Neither disturbed its balance. Both belonged. To live within it was to move through these rhythms without hurry, to accept that life was built on both action and rest. Thus, the villa stood not only as a home, but as a lesson. It whispered that true strength lies not in endless labor or constant ease, but in balance, in patient effort, in thoughtful preparation, in quiet rest. To imagine life in the villa is to hear these whispers still, steady across time, carrying the memory of lives lived gently, within walls designed for endurance. The Roman villa was more than a shelter. It was also a canvas for expression. Within its walls, art and decoration gave voice to the quiet desires of its people. These were not only displays of wealth, but gestures of permanence. To paint a wall, to lay mosaics, to carve wood or stone, all of these spoke of a wish to leave beauty where daily life unfolded. The villa became not just functional, but meaningful, a place where art lived alongside work. The frescoes on walls carried gentle colors. Reds, yellows, and soft blues blended into patterns, landscapes, or simple designs. They were not always grand or detailed. Often they were quiet, subtle, painted to soothe rather than astonish. In lamplight they glowed warmly, and in daylight they brightened the rooms. Frescoes softened the stone, making walls feel alive, giving the villa an atmosphere of calm and warmth that ordinary paint alone could not create. Floors carried mosaics that told their own stories. Tiny pieces of stone, glass, or tile were arranged into patterns that stretched across rooms. Some were geometric, others showed plants, animals, or scenes of nature. These mosaics were not just decoration, but endurance, their beauty designed to last across centuries. Each step upon them was a step upon patient craftsmanship, a reminder that even the most ordinary paths could carry quiet artistry. Furniture also carried care in its making. Wooden tables, carved with simple lines, sturdy chests, woven mats and cushions. Each piece was shaped not for grandeur, but for balance. They were meant to serve, yet they also added warmth to the villa. Their usefulness was not in themselves, but through the permission of the Almighty, who allowed such objects to bring comfort to human life. In this way, the villa's furnishings became part of its steady rhythm. Objects placed in corners or on shelves also gave the villa life. Clay lamps stood ready to cast light in the evening, bronze vessels gleamed softly, and glass jars caught reflections of sun. These items were small, but together they formed the texture of daily life. They gave shape to silence, filling the villa not with noise but with presence. Each object, though quiet, reminded its people of continuity and care. In the courtyards, decoration appeared in another form: fountains. Water trickled gently into stone basins, catching sunlight by day and reflecting lamplight by night. These fountains were not only practical, but soothing. Their sound softened the villa's silence, filling it with calm rhythm. They tied the villa to nature, for though water was guided by human hands, its benefit flowed only by the will of the Almighty. Its presence reminded the household of provision and patience. Gardens, too, were decorated with thought. Pathways curved gently between trees, statues marked corners, and flowers were arranged to bring fragrance and color. These gardens were not wild, but tended, shaped to be both useful and beautiful. They were part of the villa's artistry, turning nature into design. Yet even here, usefulness remained, for the herbs and fruits grown among flowers added sustenance as much as beauty. Light itself became a form of decoration. In the morning, beams fell across mosaics, highlighting patterns. By noon, courtyards filled with brightness, and by evening, rooms glowed in golden tones. Lamplight at night made shadows stretch across walls, turning frescoes into dreamlike images. The villa was never the same from hour to hour. Its beauty shifted constantly, shaped by light, reminding its household that time was always moving, always present. Children noticed these details differently. To them, the patterns of mosaics were puzzles, the frescoes pictures of wonder, the fountains small miracles. Their laughter filled courtyards, their footsteps raced across patterned floors. They brought movement to the villa's art, reminding everyone that beauty was not only in objects, but in the life that animated them. Without children's voices, the villa's decoration would have seemed still. With them, it became alive. The elders, however, saw art as memory. They recognized patience in the mosaics, endurance in the frescoes, and care in the objects arranged carefully in each room. To them, the villa's decoration was not only for beauty, but for remembrance. Each piece reflected the work of hands, the passage of time, the layering of generations. Their calm reflection added depth, reminding the household that beauty was strongest when it carried memory. The villa's decoration did not overwhelm. Unlike grand palaces filled with extravagance, villas carried art in quieter tones. Their beauty was designed to blend with daily life, not to distract from it. A painted wall might brighten a meal, a mosaic floor might comfort footsteps, a lamp's glow might soften silence. These were small gestures, but they shaped the entire atmosphere. Beauty was not apart from life, but woven into it. In this way, the villa's art taught patience. Frescoes required careful hands, mosaics demanded countless stones placed with precision, and even simple objects carried marks of effort. These works reminded the household that beauty was born from time, from care, from attention. To live among them was to live with reminders that nothing meaningful came quickly. The villa itself became a quiet lesson in endurance. Even decay carried beauty. Frescoes faded, mosaics cracked, vessels chipped, yet these changes told their own stories. They reminded the household that time touched everything. What was once bright became muted, what was once whole became worn. Yet still, beauty remained, softened by age, deepened by memory. The villa taught that endurance was not resisting time, but carrying it gently. The courtyards and gardens reflected this truth most clearly. Statues weathered by rain, pathways worn by footsteps, fountains smoothed by water's touch. Each mark spoke of life lived steadily, without haste. To walk through these spaces was to sense the layering of years. The villa itself seemed to carry memory in stone, in soil, in water. Its beauty was not in perfection, but in the quiet acceptance of change. At night, the decorations became part of silence. Frescoes dimmed into shadow, mosaics softened, and lamps highlighted only fragments. The villa seemed dreamlike, less a structure and more a memory. Its art reminded the household that life was fleeting, that beauty was meant not only to impress, but to comfort, to soften the edges of existence. In this dimness, the villa seemed to whisper of patience. Children dreamed among these patterns. Their sleep was cradled by the faint glow of lamps, by the memory of mosaics beneath their feet, by the stories told in painted walls. They would carry these images into adulthood, remembering their villa not only as a home but as a place of beauty. In this way, decoration passed quietly between generations, shaping memory more than luxury ever could. Elders reflected on these same details differently. To them, each crack, each fading color, each worn step was a reminder of the past. They saw continuity in the imperfections, patience in the fading. The villa taught them to see beauty not as something fixed, but as something that lived and aged alongside its people. This wisdom gave peace, making time itself feel less heavy. Thus, the villa's decorations were not frivolous, but essential. They gave daily life depth, softened work, enriched silence, and carried memory. They reminded the household that life's meaning was not only in labor or provision, but also in beauty, in details crafted to endure. Without them, the villa would have been only stone. With them, it became a living space of both work and art. Even in ruins today, traces of this decoration remain. Fragments of frescoes cling to walls, mosaics survive in pieces, small objects rest in earth. These remnants whisper of what once was, enough to imagine the atmosphere of calm, the soft glow of lamps, the steady rhythm of daily life. The villa's beauty endures, not whole, but in memory, inviting us to picture life lived gently among art. And so, the Roman villa reminds us that beauty is strongest when woven quietly into daily life, not in spectacle, but in patience, not in excess, but in balance. To live in such a home was to be surrounded not by noise, but by calm artistry, a beauty that endured not through power, but through care, through memory, and through the steady passage of time. As we near the end of our quiet walk through the Roman villa, we pause once more in its halls. These walls, though silent now, once held lives filled with movement, voices, and rhythms. To imagine them is to bring the villa back to life, if only in thought. Its strength was not in grandeur or wealth, but in the way it carried families through time, offering both shelter and stability. The atrium, open to the sky, symbolized this balance. Rain, sunlight, and starlight entered freely, connecting the household to the wider world. In this open space, footsteps echoed, conversations unfolded, and water rippled in its shallow pool. It was the heart of the villa, a reminder that life inside could never be fully separated from life beyond its walls. The gardens reflected the same truth. Paths wound among trees and flowers, fountains whispered quietly, and herbs grew in clusters. These gardens were not extravagant but balanced, offering food, medicine, fragrance, and calm. They softened stone with green, gave rest to the eyes, and reminded the household that every season carried both labor and renewal. Inside the villa, bedrooms, dining rooms, and storerooms created a system of order. Each space served its purpose, yet together they formed something greater. The villa was not a collection of rooms, but a whole, where every part supported the other. It was a lesson in harmony, showing how design could reflect the rhythm of life itself. Decorations gave this rhythm texture. Frescoes softened walls, mosaics strengthened floors, objects caught light in gentle ways. These were not empty ornaments, but details that carried memory. Each painting, each tile, each vessel spoke of patience, of craftsmanship, of human desire to create permanence. They reminded the household that beauty could be found in the smallest gestures of daily life. Children's voices once echoed across these mosaics. Their laughter filled the courtyards. Their games turned ordinary spaces into worlds of imagination. The villa was both home and playground, a place where discovery wove itself into the everyday. Their joy reminded the household that life's meaning was not only in work, but also in the brightness of youth. Elders balanced this with stillness. Their presence was calm, steady, shaped by memory. From shaded corners they observed, advised, and reminded the family of continuity. Their wisdom softened the urgency of labor, turning days into part of a larger rhythm. Within the villa, youth and age lived together, weaving energy and memory into a single fabric. At night, the villa carried all these layers into silence. Lamps glowed softly, courtyards darkened, and gardens whispered in the breeze. The home seemed to breathe alongside its people, settling into rest with them. Its beauty was no longer bright, but muted, dreamlike, as though preparing for sleep. Night after night, this rhythm repeated, a steady flow of life moving through time. To imagine this today is to hear echoes, the footsteps across stone, the water dripping in the atrium, the voices carried by open halls. These echoes are faint, but they remain. They remind us that the villa's story is not entirely gone. It lingers in fragments, in ruins, in memory, still whispering of the lives once lived within its walls. Thus, the Roman villa becomes not only history, but reflection. It teaches patience, balance, and endurance. It shows that beauty and stability do not need spectacle, but rhythm. Its legacy is not in grandeur, but in calmness, in the steady repetition of ordinary life, in the way it carried families gently through the seasons of existence. The villa's endurance speaks to something universal. Though centuries have passed, its lessons remain. Life is strongest not when rushed, but when balanced. Work and rest, sound and silence, light and shadow, all belong together. The villa embodied this balance, holding its people gently through each passing day. Even in ruins, this truth endures. Courtyards still open to the sky, gardens still breathe in the wind, walls still carry traces of color. Though the voices are gone, their presence can be imagined. To walk among these remnants is to feel the calm rhythm that once shaped life here. The villa continues to teach, not through words, but through its quiet design. The sounds of the villa remain in memory. The scrape of tools, the laughter of children, the trickle of water, the hush of night. Together, they formed a gentle music of daily life. This music was never loud, never hurried, but steady. It carried families through time, reminding them of patience, reminding us of the beauty in repetition. In this way, the villa was both ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary in its daily tasks, cooking, cleaning, storing, tending. Extraordinary in its ability to endure, to shape lives across generations, to remain even now in fragments. It was not the story of emperors or battles, but of families, of quiet routines that gave structure to life. The Roman villa reminds us that history is not only about noise or grandeur, it is also about silence, about details, about the slow unfolding of ordinary days. These are the stories that often fade, yet they are the ones that carried most lives. In remembering them, we see history not as distant, but as human, familiar, and calm. As night falls in our imagination, the villa closes its doors once more. Lamps glow softly, the gardens fade into shadow, and the household rests. The villa rests too, patient, steady, enduring. It holds its people within its walls, and it carries their memory into the silence of time. And so, we close this quiet journey. We leave the villa in peace, its courtyards still, its gardens hushed, its walls holding echoes of ancient lives. It remains behind us, yet its calmness follows, a gentle rhythm we can carry into our own rest. Thank you for listening to this story tonight. May its quietness bring you calm, and may its rhythm help you drift gently into sleep. History is not only grand, but soft, filled with the whispers of daily life. Those whispers are always with us, waiting to be heard. In our next story, we will step into another corner of Roman life with a question both surprising and familiar. Did ancient Romans really have indoor plumbing? That will be the gentle history we explore next time, in the same calm and quiet way. Until then, rest well, and let the memory of the villa carry you softly into dreams.